I will call to order the Thursday, September 5th meeting of the Verona Plan Commission, and we'll begin with the roll call. Mr. Sayre, if you would, please.
Alderperson Yurs.
Here.
Commissioner Linder.
Here.
Commissioner Ritter.
Here.
Mayor Hokumer.
Here.
Commissioner Horsfall.
Here.
Commissioner Lytle.
Here.
Commissioner Heinzen.
Here. We have full attendance this evening. Everyone's here, so thank you for that very much. Next on the agenda, we have approval of minutes from the August 5th meeting. What's your pleasure? We have a motion by Mr. Linder to approve. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Mr. Yurs. Were there any additions or corrections to the minutes of the previous meeting? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. We have a lot of things on our agenda this evening, so we will keep moving along here. First, we have a public hearing on a zoning map amendment to rezone lots 66 and 67 of the Hawthorne Hill subdivision from the current classification of mixed residential to community residential. I would accept a motion to open the public hearing. We have a motion by Mr. Horsfall. Is there a second? I'll second. Seconded by Mr. Heinzen. All those in favor of opening the public hearing signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed, no. Motion carried. We are in the public hearing stage. Mr. Sayre, if you would provide the background, please.
Sure. The applicant is proposing to rezone lots 66 and 67 of the Hawthorne Hill subdivision from mixed residential, which is more of the city's duplex zoning district, to community residential, which is a single-family district within the city. The intent of the applicant is to rezone the lots, and then on the next item on the agenda is subdivide the lots into from their existing 2 to 3 lots, so they can construct single-family homes on these lots. Across the street, properties are zoned community residential and also actually in the subdivision itself, so it is consistent with the neighboring properties. All the zoning ordinance, it does conform to the zoning ordinance requirements of the minimum lot size, and staff has no concerns with it.
Thank you, Mr. Sayre. With that, if there's anyone who wishes to, from the public that wishes to speak on this specific agenda item, if you would please come forward. There should be a sign-up sheet at the podium, and we would ask that you sign in and give your name and address, please. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this agenda item? Anyone from the public that wishes to speak? Anyone that wishes to speak on this agenda item? Seeing none, I would accept the motion to close the public hearing. So moved. We have a motion by Mr. Yurs. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Mr. Linder. All those in favor of closing the public hearing signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. And that motion carries. Mr. Sayre, any additional background you want to give before we consider agenda item 4A?
You know, I think the only thing I want to add is that as the city moves forward in the next couple of years, we are running short on single-family lots. We only have a handful in the western part of the city. Scenic Ridge has, I think, one more phase left, and Hawthorne Hills has a few lots left. So this request will help fill that need of the single-family lot dilemma that we'll be facing within the near future. So I expect maybe a few more of these coming in at some point.
Thank you, Mr. Sayre. And on this agenda item, 4A and 4B, both actions, if we were to take action, would be to recommend to the Common Council. Questions or comments? Mr. Horsfall?
Are you going to read in the letter from Ernest Horner that was sitting at our location? I mean, it wasn't part of the public comment, but...
Mr. Sayre?
I can read it if you like, or I can summarize it.
Summarize
Summarize
it.
Okay. Ernest Hornick, who owns the lots actually immediately I guess south of these 2 lots, sent a letter in. He has concerns about the rezoning request. His concerns stem from the fact that his 3 duplex lots will then be adjacent to 3 single-family lots. He's concerned that it won't be compatible, and it may not have the right look to it. So he's concerned about the mix of housing in that area. He did stop in and hand delivered the letter to me. I think his concerns are probably, you know, the reality is that there's a lot of lots within the city that are adjacent to single-family lots. There's actual lots just south of this as well as you wrap around the court there that go from duplex to single-family as well. I think he has a point, but I think it's something from a design standpoint when he designs his duplexes, and obviously the future developer of this designs a nice-looking single-family lot, it probably won't be an issue. You know, duplex and single-family usually works well together.
Additional questions or comments? Mr. Horsfall?
Is the person making the request here? To answer a
Yes,
question?
yes, he is.
Yes.
I guess my question is why CR versus, I mean, because the lots are so small that that's the only size house you can fit in there?
Yes, I'm Tom Ellefson Construction, and that's correct.
Okay.
But they're also compatible with the neighborhood.
Is CR right across the street?
There is CR across the street, and it's also down the street as well. And as you head around the corner there and head west, I forget the name of the road there, but that all those lots that abut the highway, those are all CR.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Further questions or comments? Just my opinion on this, I think it makes a lot of sense. Staff has certainly recommended that we do both the rezone and then the subdivision of the lots, which would require two separate actions. So I would urge you to support the request and recommend to the Common Council. Mr. Linder?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. What's to the east? What is that building behind it?
That is a planned unit development for the townhouses. So those are those two-story townhouses.
So you'd have single family right next to the townhouses?
Yes.
And then you'd have, in that street alone, then you'd have duplex, or you'd have townhouses, single family, duplex, and then back around to single family again, when you get around the curve, huh? I guess my point of view, from what I look at it, I think duplex is probably the proper zoning for that area. I know in the past I've been pretty lenient and if the market drives it, but it seems, I don't remember anywhere else in the city where you go right from townhouses to single family. If somebody else who knows, I can't think of any off the top of my head.
Mr. Yurs?
There are some areas over in Cross Country Heights where, like on Walnut Street is all multifamily housing, and then if you go across on, I'm not sure what that was, but if you go across the street on Mahogany, I think that's all single family. And
That's across the street,
well, I mean, but it's still kind of directly right next to each other. I mean, I really don't see a problem with it myself.
Mr. Lytle?
Yeah, I'm pretty familiar with this corner. It's on the way to school every day. This whole area kind of on the south side of Kimball Lane there has not developed quite like they'd planned initially. I think the single-family lots in this area have pretty much been consumed, and there appears to be not that much demand for duplex lots. In terms of backing up to the townhouses, I think if we were platting from scratch, that might not be the ideal, but they're also right across the street from single family. And in terms of a transition, I don't see an issue with the transition, given that these are going to be on the smaller side of single family houses, and they're in compliance, in harmony with the ones across the street. So that's why I will plan to vote for this.
Further questions, comments, or potential motions? Mr. Horsfall?
And this time I'd like to make a recommendation to the council that zoning map amendment.
Jeff, could you turn your mic on, please? Thank you.
At this time, do I need to repeat everything?
If you would, please.
At this time, I'd like to make a recommendation to the Common Council to have the zoning map amendment to rezone lots 66 and 67 of Hawthorne Hills subdivision from their current classification of mixed residential to community residential.
We have a motion by Mr. Horsfall. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Ritter. We are now open for discussion on the motion. Are there further questions or comments on the motion? Mr. Lytle?
Just clarifying that, Jeff, are you wanting the motion to cover both the certified survey map as well as the rezoning, or also whether we prefer to do it that way or the other way.
We should have separate motions.
That's your answer.
Do you want to clarify what your motion was?
My motion is just A, 4A.
To rezone. Further questions on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
And that motion carries. Next, we're on agenda item 4B, which would then be to recommend approval of a certified survey map to divide those two lots, lot 66 and 67. Are there questions, comments, or potential motions? Mr. Lytle?
I'll make the motion to recommend approval to council that they approve the zoning map. Now you jinxed me.
Yeah, sorry about that.
So to approve the certified survey map.
And subdividing the lots. Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Lytle. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Yurs. Further questions on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
Motion carries. And that agenda item will be on the Common Council meeting for next week, Monday. Next, we have a public hearing on a conditional use permit amendment to Epic Systems Corporation to allow for the construction of a food service building located at 1979 Milky Way. Again, this is a public hearing. I would ask for a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Horsfeld, seconded by Ms. Ritter. All those in favor of opening the public hearing signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. We are in the public hearing stage. Mr. Sayre, if you would provide the background, please.
Epic's proposing to construct a 64,000 square foot food service building at 197 Milky Way. A conditional use permit amendment is required as they're adding another separate building. Anytime they add buildings to the site, it requires an amendment to the overall group development for the entire project. So that's the purpose of the public hearing and the conditional use permit request.
You've heard the background from Mr. Sayre. We are in the public hearing stage, so anyone from the public that wishes to speak specifically on this agenda item, if you would please come forward at this time. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this agenda item? Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak? Seeing none, I would accept the motion then to close the public hearing. We have a motion by Mr. Linder. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Ritter. All those in favor of closing the public hearing signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried, and the public hearing is closed. Mr. Sayre, is there anything in addition that you would like to make a statement at this point?
Yes, I would.
Okay. Mr. Sayre?
The proposed food service building will be located north of the existing K building on the Epic property. This was before the Plan Commission last month for initial review. For the most part, the site plan and the building itself has remained pretty consistent throughout. There's been some minor modifications to the building itself. The tower feature has been reorientated. They've added some more details with glass and additional material enhancements as well. Staff has reviewed it from a zoning ordinance standpoint. It does conform to all the required setbacks. The one exception is it's 3 feet taller than what's allowed by ordinance, but through the conditional use permit process, they are allowed to exceed that height requirement by 3 feet. Parking, there's no additional parking planned on the property itself. From an architectural standpoint, like I said, the building has been enhanced with more windows and more features to it. The one significant change, as you can kind of see from the site plan, is they're proposing to install a train car, a vintage train car that they would repurpose, refinish, and place in the site as an amenity for the actual food service building. So that would be placed on, I think, the north side of the property, and it would be available to people, eating their meals there as well. Staff has no concerns with the architectural look of the building. While it does have many similarities to obviously King's Cross Station in England, it does blend well, and the reality is what Epic does out there, they do everything well. I can't think of one thing that I can look at and say, why was that done that way? It's very high quality, and obviously the train car is a different feature from what the Plan Commission saw last time, but I trust that it will be done to the highest standard like everything else at Epic is done. So with that, staff does recommend approval of the conditional use permit amendment and also the site plan for Epic.
Thank you, Mr. Sayre. Questions, comments, or potential motions? This agenda item, 5A, would go to the Common Council as a recommendation. If there is action on agenda item 5A, 5B is site plan review, and that would be handled by the Plan Commission and does not need to go to the City Council. Mr. Linder?
Just one question, the height, the 48 feet, is that to the top of that spire or just to the top of the tower?
I believe it's the spire.
Mr. Yurs?
That was my question.
Okay. Mr. Horsfall?
At this time, I'd like to make a recommendation to the Common Council to approve the conditional use permit amendment of the Epic Systems Corporation Group Development to allow the construction of a food service building located at 1979 Milky Way.
We have a motion by Mr. Horsfall. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Linder. Questions or comments on the motion? Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the recommendation to the Common Council signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. Mr. Sayre, did you want to speak on agenda item 5B? Okay. Are there questions of city staff or of Epic on agenda item 5B? Seeing none, again, this is approval that would take place here at the Plan Commission, so it's not a recommendation to the Common Council. What is your pleasure? Mr. Linder?
Recommend approval of the Epic Systems to construct a 64,000 square foot food service building located at 1979 Milky Way.
We have a motion by Mr. Linder. Is there a second? Second. Second by Mr. Yurs. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. And that first agenda item will be on the Common Council agenda for Monday evening. Thank you. Next, we have a public hearing on the precise implementation plan for a planned unit development located at 613 West Verona Avenue to allow for the construction of a Fairfield Inn and Suites Hotel. Is there a motion to open the public hearing? We have a motion by Mr. Horsfall. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Lytle. All those in favor of opening the public hearing signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. We are in the public hearing stage. Mr. Sayre, if you would provide the background, please.
Thank you. The applicant is requesting a precise implementation plan approval to construct a 91-unit Fairfield Inn and Suites Hotel at 613 West Verona Avenue. This is step 4 of 4, the last step in the plan development process. So if it does move forward, this is the last time the Plan Commission would see this project and it would be built. And I guess I'll wait in the rest of my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Sayre. So we are in the public hearing stage. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this specific agenda item? Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak? And again, if you would, please identify yourself, and if there's a sign-in sheet, if you would sign in, please.
Okay. Robert Feller, and residence is 983 Hillside Way, and I'm practice manager at Verona Veterinary Medical Service at 655 Half Mile Road, and share the building with Verona Boarding Service, and I'm part owner of the boarding service. We're just the south side of Half Mile Road there. Couple questions that we were wondering if they've been addressed. First, our mailbox is on Half Mile Road. It's on the north side of the road. And so understand that that's considered for diagonal parking all the way along the road there. So what consideration there would be for the mailbox location? When we built, we asked to have the mailbox put on 9 Mound Road. That's where our parking is, but we're told that that was a different mail route and we couldn't have a address for 9 Mound Road. So that's been, we have that as established for many years and consideration for not only where our mailbox is located, but all of our correspondence and everything, how we'd have to deal with changes there. The other consideration is for parking. With the consideration for the diagonal parking on the north side of Half Mile Road there, what the consideration would be for the south side of 9 Mound Road, or I'm sorry, Half Mile Road there. We have staff members park along there now. Wondered if the plan is to do away with parking on the south side, with having diagonal parking on the north side, or if there'd be exceptions made for us if we wanted to change parking along the south side of the road. So if during the discussion, if those matters would be addressed.
All right, thank you. Anyone else in the public that wishes to speak? Anyone else in the public that wishes to speak?
Howdy, Jim Sorek calling, and I just wanted to add 603 Half Mile Road is my address, and I just wanted to add to what Bob had just discussed. And one of the things also is snow removal and stuff like that, how that would be handled if there was angled parking on that side of the road, how would there be a berm along there, and then that would have to be removed by the hotel, or if, a couple of swaths would be made through there, exactly how that was all going to work out. And then the other thing is that we got alternate side parking on that road. So in wintertime, every other day there'd be no parking. And I guess that's all.
Okay, Jim, could you spell your last name, please?
Sorrick.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the public that wishes to speak? Anyone else in the public that wishes to speak? Seeing none, I would accept the motion then to close the public hearing. We have a motion by Ms. Ritter. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Heinzen. All those in favor of closing the public hearing signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. Mr. Sayre, did you want to speak on agenda item 6A then, please?
Sure. As I stated previously, the applicant's requesting PIP approval for this project, and this is the last step of the project. From a bulk standpoint, a setback standpoint, the proposed hotel does conform to the general development plan that was approved a couple months ago. It does conform to all the setbacks. Parking and access. Parking to the site will be both the surface parking, and then there's also underground parking as well. And then there also will be street parking too. One of the things with the street parking is that part of this, there's also a CSM on the agenda, and part of that CSM will dedicate additional right-of-way along Half Mile to the city. And as part of that dedication, the city would be swapping some property on the corner here. And when that property is dedicated along Half Mile, the developer has agreed to enter into an agreement with the city for the maintenance of this parking area and also the snow removal of that area. So the developer will be handling that as part of an agreement that we will be entering into with the developer. From an access standpoint, access would be from 9 Mound Road, Half Mile Road, and then also from Verona Avenue, consistent with what was in the GDP. Drainage and stormwater, the applicant's will utilize underground storage and will also utilize the regional stormwater pond to the east. A landscaping plan was submitted with the proposal. It does conform to the point requirements in the zoning ordinance. A photometric plan was also submitted, and that does conform as well. Architecturally, the applicant is proposing to use a variety of materials, including stone veneer, brick, cement fiber siding, and ephes. And I do have some samples here that I can pass around. Color number 1, I believe, is this more the yellow tinge color, and that would be the main color on the front and also the back side. Color 2 here, and I'll pass it to the left, would be the banding on the building, the stripes that go around it. The brown color here would be the cement fiber siding. That would be on the front and the sides as well. And then we also have the white color here, which I will not pass this around because white is white. That'd be on the front of the building. I also have the stone veneer, if anyone would like to take a look at that. It's quite heavy, but it's typical stone veneer, high quality. That would be the feature on the front of the building along Verona Avenue. It'd be at the corner of Nine Mound. It would also be used in the awning to kind of attach the awning to it as well. One of the changes from the GDP was they've actually added an outdoor seating area in the front here with a pergola on top. They've also have some stone piers there as well to provide some more of that street character, that atmosphere at the front of the building. The back of the building, we've kind of asked that, recommended that they focus more of their efforts on the front to make sure the front of it has a lot of high quality materials. So the back side, due to the fact that it is facing an industrial park, isn't obviously as prominent as the front part, but we do feel that's appropriate. Brick is used on the majority of the lower level here in the dark color, so it still will provide an attractive look to it, but the main focus point of this project is the front view and from that corner as well. Overall, staff is comfortable with the design of the project. We feel it will be compatible and does conform to the downtown overlay requirements. Signage, a conceptual signage plan was submitted and appears appropriate for the property. As stated previously, they're working with the city on a land swap for the northwest corner of the site and also for this property on Half Mile Road, the right-of-way on Half Mile Road. But they're also in the process of working with DOT. They still have not finalized the land transfer with DOT. They're, I believe, exchanging some numbers and working through that with the state. That will hopefully be resolved in the very near future. But what that would entail would be swapping a chunk of property in the southeast corner for this property in this triangle right here. Along with this, there's also a certified survey map that would be recorded after all the necessary land transfers have been completed. So with that, the staff does recommend that the Plan Commission provide a recommendation to the council to approve the precise implementation plan with the following conditions. 1, a dumpster enclosure detail shall be submitted and approved by the Director of Planning and Development prior to the occupancy being granted. They had submitted one to me, and I can pass it around if people would like to see it. The dumpster location is in the far eastern portion of the site, and it's going to be highly visible from the road. I've asked them to come back with actually a brick enclosure because I think it's going to be highly visible. People are going to see it, and I'm concerned it's going to stick out. So it's something I think I can work with the applicants on. They're willing to work on that as well. A second condition would be prior to the issuance of building permits, the property owner shall complete the necessary land transfers with the city and DOT. And 3, prior to the issuance of building permits, the applicant shall enter into an agreement with the city for the use and maintenance of right-of-way along Half Mile Road. So that'd be for the PIP. A couple of comments, I think, from public hearing that I can just touch on briefly. Regarding the mailbox location, that's one I was not aware of. So that's something the city would be happy to work with the property owners along there with to see if the post office can assist in either having a combined location for one drop-off or what we'd have to do to address that. The parking on the south side will be unchanged. The angle parking will not impact the parking on the south side of the street. However, that's a good point that during the winter months there is alternate parking. That's something I'll have to speak with the police chief about, and hopefully we can address that quite simply.
Thank you, Mr. Sayre. There was also the issue of the snow removal, which I guess ties into alternate side parking. I don't know if you want to speak to that, or Mr. Gunlock. Mr. Gunlock?
It was my understanding that with the land swap with the city for this right-of-way, that the hotel owner was going to provide the snow removal for the angled parking. And that snow removal would be taken, basically is gonna have to be hauled away. There isn't any room for storage there, so they're gonna have to haul it away.
Thanks, Bob. Mr. Heinzen?
Just a follow-up question with that. How practically does that work? We'll have the plows plowing the street and just not getting up towards the curb?
Well, they'll plow, the city will plow the snow up to the curb. And then the hotel will end up plowing that angle parking and hauling the snow away. So yeah, there's gonna be a mound there that they're probably gonna have to haul away.
And one other question, is it common in the city to have alternate side parking in commercial areas? I mean, how unusual is it for there to be alternate side parking in an area which is not residential? Right.
Yeah. I'm not aware of just where all the streets that are alternate side parking, if it's just residential, if it's commercial.
Mhm.
I think it's all through the city, isn't it?
I believe it's all through the city, but I'd have to confirm that. I think it's citywide.
It's an issue that the police chief is gonna have to look at.
Okay.
And in this case, we may be able to, I mean, if we've got it parked full at night, it's gonna be difficult for snow removal, and that's why it's the alternates. And maybe because it is a commercial area, it can be a special case. The other thing is, for mailboxes, there is some green space on either side of the driveway off a Half Mile Road. There's also some green space at the west end of the angled parking off a Half Mile Road, where a combination drop box, lock box for mail could be located. There's probably more than one mailbox than on the north side.
Thank you, Mr. Gunlock. Further questions, comments, potential action? Again, this would be a recommendation to the Common Council. And in Mr. Sayers' report, there are the 3 conditions on the first item. Any potential motions? Ms. Ritter?
Thank you, Mayor. At this time, I'll make a motion that that our Plan Commission recommend to the Common Council to approve the precise implement plan for 613 West Verona Avenue to allow for the construction of a Fairfield Inn and Suites with the following conditions: a dumpster enclosure proposal be sent to the Director of Planning and Development for the city for approval. And second, prior to the issuance of building permits, the property owner shall complete the necessary land transfers with the city and the DOT. And third, prior to issuance of the building permits, any building permits, the applicant shall enter into an agreement with the city for the use and maintenance of right-of-way along Half Mile Road.
Thank you, Ms. Ritter. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Horsfall. Are there any questions on the motion? Mr. Horsfall?
Just a comment that,
Is your mic on?
just a comment that, this has been a tough site to get to, and so I'm really happy that it looks like a good project and everything, so I'm really excited about it being developed and stuff. So.
I would echo those comments. Any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion carries. Mr. Sayer, the next item.
For the CSM, what this is doing is just combining the lots once the land transfers are completed. So with that, there's 2 conditions we'd like to place on it. The first one would be the property owner shall complete the necessary land transfers with the city and the Wisconsin Department of Transportation. Second would be the applicant shall enter into an agreement with the city for the use and maintenance of right-of-way along Half Mile Road, consistent with the previous conditions, but once again, just making sure we get those taken care of before it is recorded.
Questions, comments, potential motions? Again, there's the conditions that would need to be included in the motion. This goes to the council, yes. Ms. Ritter?
Sure. Thanks, Mayor. At this time, I'd like to recommend that we make a motion to the Common Council to approve the certified survey map for 613 West Verona Avenue to allow for the construction of the Fairfield Inn. with the following conditions. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, the property owner shall complete the necessary land transfers with the City of Verona and the Wisconsin DOT. And prior to the issuance of building permits, the applicant shall enter into agreement with the City of Verona for the use and maintenance of right-of-way along Half Mile Road.
Thank you, Ms. Ritter. We have a motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Linder. Are there questions or comments on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. And that motion carries. This will also be on the agenda for next week, Monday. Thank you. Next, we have a public hearing on a conditional use permit for a multi-tenant building located at 611 Hometown Circle to allow for the construction and use of a drive-up window and 2 outdoor patios. Do I have a motion to open that public hearing? We have a motion by Mr. Yurs. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Horsfall. All those in favor of opening the public hearing signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. And that motion carries. We're in the public hearing stage. Mr. Sarah, if you would provide the background, please.
Thank you. The zoning ordinance does require conditional use permits for outdoor patios and drive-through windows in this zoning district. That's the purpose of the public hearing tonight and the conditional use process. The building itself is reviewed during the site plan review. Specific users have not been identified at this point, so when users are identified, if they are indoor commercial entertainment, restaurants, those will also have to come back and get their own conditional use permit. But as of right now, this is merely just for the outdoor patio and the drive-through.
Thank you, Mr. Sarah. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this agenda item? Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak? Going to third and final time, anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this agenda item? Seeing none, I would accept the motion to close the public hearing. We have a motion by Mr. Linder. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Ritter. All those in favor of closing the public hearing signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. And that motion carries. We are now on agenda item 7A. This one would be a recommendation as well to the Common Council. Mr. Sayre, if you would, please.
Thank you. The applicant is proposing to construct an 8,620 square foot multi-tenant building at 611 Hometown Circle. As previously stated, there'd be 1 drive-through window and also 2 outdoor patios. There's 4 parcels out in the front of Hometown Circle. One of those parcels has been developed as a Dairy Queen. This would be the second one that's being proposed to be developed, and there'd be 2 more vacant ones remaining. These were initially created in 2007 when the Farm and Fleet store was constructed. As stated previously, at this time, tenants have not been identified. However, I anticipate that there'll probably most likely be some type of food establishment in here with the drive-through and the outdoor patios, and most likely some retail as well. This project did receive an initial review at the Plan Commission in August. From a bulk standpoint, the site plan has not changed too much from the last meeting. The drive-through has been modified to be more in line with, I guess, a straight shot coming off the building instead of the initial one had an angle going back into the entrance of the drive-through lane. So that has been reorientated. The building location itself, for the most part, is still in the same location. One item of note that obviously did not change was the building is still not at a true east-west orientation. Staff continues to support the modification of not requiring it to have a true east-west. And I guess I'll quickly go through the reasons for that. The first reason is that if the building does have that true east-west orientation on this site, there will be additional cost to the developer. He'll be forced to step the building, and what that does is it does create additional exterior walls, which does increase the cost to the developer itself. Second, what it potentially does too is it creates some odd spaces within the building. You have sometimes some smaller spaces because of how the building is stepped out. So it becomes a challenge from a cost standpoint for that. The second issue is if the commission does decide to enforce the true east-west orientation, multi-tenant buildings like this become more challenging. The site configuration, it starts chewing up a lot of space. They're either forced to step the building or shrink the building, which would be similar to the Dairy Queen. Most likely, if it's not waived, you'll probably have a lot more standalone 2,000 to 3,000 square foot single tenant buildings on these outlots. That's probably what the consequence is if we move forward with that, requiring the true east-west. As part of our downtown planning process, we have asked MSA to take a look at the downtown and the entire city with regard to this orientation requirement. After the last meeting, I know I asked around to a few people and said, well, why is this orientation requirement in place? I couldn't get a real straight answer from too many people. The feeling there, the impression that I received from some people was, well, initially in the downtown area has rear lot lines running at true east-west orientation. The back lot lines run east-west. The front ones obviously are angled with the street. So it was put in place so the buildings wouldn't encroach on the rear lot lines. That was one of the reasons I was told. The other reason I was told is it's in place because it was, well, they just picked one. They picked either having it orientated to the street, and it was also suggested orientated to east-west. And they selected east-west whenever that occurred. And that was before my time, obviously, so I couldn't find anything in my files. And looking at the actual property too, areas that are east of the Culvers, the McDonald's, the printing company, the bank, the post office, even Culvers, are orientated to the street, not as a true east-west. Now there is a difference in downtown. Once you get to downtown, there are numerous buildings that are on the true east-west orientation. You have the Walgreens, you have Clinky Cleaners, you have the bank here. The Sarah Investment Building is also like that as well, but that's a different situation. So there are more buildings in downtown that have that true east-west. But the buildings on East Verona Avenue, for the most part, don't have that. Dairy Queen does, yes. Do you really notice it though? Not so much because it's such a small building. Larger buildings, you'll notice it more. So with that, staff does still support the modification to that requirement in the site plan review of this project. Going back to the site plan, parking, the number of parking spaces provided is sufficient. They provide 7 spaces per 1,000, which should meet the code requirements and should be able to accommodate future uses in the area. A photometric plan was submitted. Modifications to that plan need to be made, and the applicant is aware of that and is willing to make that a condition of approval if the project moves forward. A landscaping plan was submitted and does meet the minimum point requirements. Drainage and stormwater, another challenge of the site is that all these out parcels in this area have to accommodate on-site stormwater. So the applicant is proposing to do underground storage for this property. The architecture has been modified from the last Plan Commission meeting. The applicant has added more brick on the facades. A concern was raised by the applicant, which I agree with, is that adding brick on the storefronts and mounting signs on those becomes a challenge from long-term maintenance. When tenants leave and signs have been drilled in the brick, there's usually a significant larger cost because when they take the signs down, they usually damage the brick. So they requested to especially have above the entrances to the stores, having that as EIFS, so when tenants do leave, there's not a damage issue. Staff is comfortable with the design. It's been improved. It does complement the Farm and Fleet in the area. It also complements the existing Dairy Queen that is on site. Signage, we did sit down with the developer and Farm and Fleet to discuss that. The tenant signage for this building will go on the Farm and Fleet sign that is at the corner. Farm and Fleet in the near future will come back and will be amending or requesting amendment to their PIP, requesting that the corner lots, so this lot and the other one to the east, tenants in those developments have to go on that monument sign. The middle lots could have their own monument sign, similar to what Dairy Queen has had. So they're asking to be consistent on the end lots, making it going on the Farm and Fleet monument, and the middle ones would be able to have their own personal monument sign, whatever the development is. So that will hopefully be coming back in the next couple months. So with that, staff does recommend the Planning Commission provide a recommendation to the council to approve the conditional use permit subject to the following condition, that prior to the issuance of building permits, the applicant shall submit a revised photometric plan and erosion control plan and stormwater management plan for city staff review and approval. They're putting the final touches on their stormwater plan. It should be appropriate since they're using underground storage. It should be pretty simple, but they're waiting to see if the project is approved before they put the final touches on those and submit those to the city engineer for review.
Thank you, Mr. Sarah. I think this is another example of where, at the last meeting, we asked the applicant to take a look at a couple of things, a couple of concerns that we had. Some of them have been taken care of and resolved, and the other one, I think, as far as the orientation, the east-west orientation of the building, I think what staff is saying, what Adam is saying, makes sense in this situation, and I support the request, and I would urge you to do so as well. But comments or questions? Mr. Yours, please.
I would just like to echo your comments on the building orientation. I've gotten comments from people around the city when we talk about downtown. They think it's kind of silly that it's not oriented to the street. And looking at the pictures, if the building is a little off kilter, it just kind of it seems like there's something missing, or that we missed something. So I really do like that the building will be oriented to the street. I think that it's an important measure to take.
Thank you. Did I see another hand over on this, Ms. Ritter?
And I'm not sure if you'll know the answer to this, Adam, but the tree that's in the photo 4, I know when the Farm and Fleet project was in front of us a couple years ago, there was questions from the neighborhood about the large oak trees I think they're oak trees, that sit on that property, and there are still a few left on that outlot. And I'm assuming that the large trees that are currently still there will be removed, and these are new trees, given the size. Is the applicant here?
Yes, you're correct in your assumption.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Other questions or comments or potential, Mr. Heinzen?
Sure, I have a couple questions or comments, I guess, about the orientation, and perhaps these were addressed last week or last month, and if they were, you can just tell me that I don't have to go into this. But the two questions are this. First is, have we in the past had a significant issue with somebody who's come before the Plan Commission over the orientation of a building? And I'm thinking right now just about consistency. And what we've done in the past should not mean that we have to do the same thing into the future, but I think it would at least be a good idea for us to have a clear understanding of any suggestions, very strong suggestions to developers that it has to be oriented east and west. And the one that is most obvious, I guess, is the Fleet Farm. And I wasn't on the Plan Commission when that was being discussed, but was that a big issue that we need to be concerned about moving forward? The second thing is related. Do we want to have in the city some orientation plan? Which is to say, we have now approved a number of developments that are oriented east and west. Are we going to take this up on an individual basis, whether or not it should be consistent with what we have put in place now for some time and people have been working under? Or are we going to change what we have identified as what looks best for the city?
Thank you, Mr. Hines, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Sarah. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to answer your first question, but perhaps the second one.
Yeah, the first one I'll probably defer to Mr. Gunlock in a second here, or someone else who might know the answer to that, because I'm not familiar with that question. The second one, from a how we proceed in the future on this. Ideally, I'd be sitting before you right now saying we have a downtown plan done that would have a recommendation in there, but we're still working on that downtown plan. What I expect to come out of that downtown plan is some type of recommendation. Either they've already looked at the downtown and possible as gateways on the edge of the city. Is a gateway different? Possibly. But I echo your point in the sense of if we move forward on this, it is a, policy question, and it is to be consistent, yes, we'd have to be consistent, especially in this area. I mean, the challenge on this property is that if, I've been asked that question before already, and the challenge is that if we delay this project, it won't happen. Right? And that was my big push to make sure it got here, because obviously with construction schedules and timing, this has been on the agenda once. It was pulled off due to some issues with a past tenant, and now I'm trying. My intention is to make sure I get projects to and keep moving forward. But so that's the big reason why it's on here, to kind of throw it to the commission. But I think it is a policy question, yes. And I think if there's some discussion up by the planning commission right now of how we're treating even just the outlots in front of Farm and Fleet, I mean, that's probably the place to start. I mean, this is the eastern edge as you come into the city, but you're absolutely correct when you talk about precedent coming in the future.
Sure. And just to follow up on that, and I don't recall if this was an issue in the siting of the Dairy Queen. Was the developer owner there interested in being parallel to the roadway and told that it has to be east-west? Particularly since that was a plan that, I'm just trying to make sure that we're not sending out mixed messages or doing something right now that's completely inconsistent with what we've told the last folks who have been before the Plan Commission.
Mr. Sarah?
I suspect he was told he had to orient it east-west. The difference with that one, it's just a simple little twist of the building. It's a small building that, to put that requirement in place, I think it was probably from the developer standpoint of, sure, no problem. I think the greater discussion on that project, from reading the report, which was a couple months ago, but was more on the architecture, not on the orientation.
Mr. Gudlock?
Yeah, the Farm and Fleet building, it fits the lot because the lot is east-west orientated along the back lot line and the east and west lines. The building fits that lot in a true east-west orientation. I don't remember per se, but I don't ever think that any of Farm and Fleet's plans that they brought in, they were orientated in a alignment with Hometown Circle. That this was basically the orientation that the original building came in at. It was more a concern about architecture of the building at the time than the orientation of the building, how it laid on an east-west.
I'm trying to think back to those conversations, and I don't remember there ever being a request for them to do the east-west orientation. Ms. Ritter?
The one that comes to mind for me is the Klinke building. That one, if I remember correctly, originally had it set to the road, orientation to the road, and I think is now true east-west. But don't we have a Verona Avenue overlay plan?
Right.
And isn't that plan still active?
Mr. Sayre?
Yes, we have an overlay district and it's still active, yes.
And in that plan, does the plan say east-west?
Yes.
Mr. Sayre?
So wouldn't, if we have to make a special exception for this property, and I'm assuming we have the authority to do that, given the circumstances, if we so choose. But if we were going to take it on as a case by case every time we have someone come in, a developer come in, then wouldn't we want to change the overlay plan?
Mr. Sayre?
Yes, and that would hopefully come out of the downtown plan recommendation. Like I said, that plan's not done yet, and that's where I'm hoping the recommendation comes from, the guidance of the consultants. But we're not quite there yet to release whatever the recommendation may be. I haven't even seen it myself. I've asked them to look at it, but I haven't seen what they're going to tell us.
And your downtown plan is as far east as this property? Would it cover that as well? So would it take the place of the overlay, the Verona Avenue overlay, and just add on to it probably Main Street?
Well, a few years ago, I think it was, that the overlay was combined with the downtown district, and that's kind of how the overlay district runs from the far eastern end of the city all the way out to Epic. I mean, it's the entire length of the city. You know, I think at some point, we'll probably have to take a look and say, and I think the consultants kind of led into that by defining a downtown and defining gateways to the city. You know, the obviously east and west, they've kind of defined that as gateways, and the downtown is a kind of its own separate area. They've kind of laid that framework, groundwork a little bit in some of the meetings. So I suspect at some point, you know, there might be two distinct areas. If you know, that's one of the questions in the downtown plan is the downtown the same as the east part of the city and the western part of the city? Some of the comments we've had is people are saying, yes, it is. Other people say, no, it's completely different. And that's what we're trying to flesh out in the plan.
So, just in addition to what Adam was saying, that currently it is within the overlay district, this project would be. That doesn't mean that once the downtown plan is done, that it continues to be in the district, in the overlay district. Further, Mr. Lytle?
Just to, as an update from my concerns from last month, I did do some independent research in terms of the pros and cons of being parallel to the frontage street, the street in front of the building. And I do see good reason to revisit that. Some of the other components of the overlay district, I think I'm more, less willing to be flexible on. I think our goal of not having parking in front of the buildings, between the building and the street, trying to push those buildings forward helps achieve more of a traditional downtown feel, makes you feel more, makes it feel more walkable, makes it feel more inviting to pedestrians. This particular building, I'm not convinced that it would be a great hardship to orient it on a true east-west. I do think you present some good reasons why that may not be good to apply here. But just in general, in terms of saying, we took your comments, we incorporated some of them, here it is, approve it this month, or we're walking. I don't like being backed into a corner like that. I don't think that that's a role we want to find ourselves in on an ongoing basis. I do think this is a good improvement in terms of the exterior materials, and I'm certainly willing to work with the applicant in terms of making space for signage that is practical. So I find myself not wanting to vote in favor of this tonight, but I most likely will vote in favor. But on a going forward basis, I would much rather see us review the guidelines, revise them, and then accept an improved orientation, if that's what it is, rather than being pushed in that direction just based on trying to squeeze as much of a building onto this lot as possible.
Thank you. Further questions, Mr. Linder?
About the building orientation, the Advanced Auto Parts, was that east-west or was that along Verona Avenue?
Mr. Sarah?
That was east-west.
So everything recent has been east-west.
Since I've been here, but I think for the most part, yes.
I mean, we're talking 6-10 years. Walgreens has been 6 years probably.
Other questions, comments? Mr. Burns?
I just wanted to provide one other comment on the east-west orientation. I think one thing that's unique about the lots in this location is that the lot lines on both the front and the rear are oriented parallel with Verona Avenue, and that is a difference from several of the other projects, with the exception of Dairy Queen that has been recently approved. I think that presents some challenges here versus other locations where the rear lot line is on an east-west orientation.
Thank you. Did I see another hand? Mr. Heinzen?
Sure. I like what the building looks like. I would like to say, absolutely, let's in this instance change the orientation, make an exception. But I think that in order to do that, we have to have, we have to understand why we have the orientation in the first instance, and how often we've used it, and if we've made any exceptions in the past. If we come to the conclusion that the orientation rule is one that doesn't serve the city well, then I think that we have that discussion and change it. I don't think we have enough information in connection with this one project to make an exception. So I guess that's where I'm going to ultimately fall here, I'm afraid.
Other questions, comments? Mr. Linder?
Some comments on the building. I think it does look pretty nice.